Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into something pretty fascinating today. We're going deep on Arthur Schopenhauer.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah. Specifically, his ideas about silence. Not just the absence of sound,
Right.
but like a real pathway to wisdom, self-mastery, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
definitely intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got his major works here, of course, and some letters, too. And, Schopenhauer, he's known for being pretty pessimistic, right?
Yeah, gloomy guy.
So how does all that fit with silence?
Well, that's the thing about Schopenhauer. Even with that bleak outlook, he saw silence as this, well, a key to a kind of freedom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now that is interesting. How can pessimism and silence lead to freedom?
Well, it all starts with what he called the will. This force inside us all, always wanting, always desiring.
Okay, the will.
And for Schopenhauer, the will, it's actually the root of our suffering.
Right.
Never satisfied, always wanting more.
I
And
can see that, yeah.
the interesting thing is he saw speech as like a tool of the will.
So when we're talking expressing ourselves, we're feeding this will, the thing that's making us unhappy.
Exactly. Every word, it's often, expressing some desire, trying to force our will on the world. But silence, that's different.
Okay, yeah.
Silence is about resisting that pull, not giving in to the will.
Stepping back.
Yeah.
Interesting. There's this Schopenhauer quote, "Silence is often the loudest voice in the room." It seems kind of contradictory, right?
Right.
How can silence, no sound, actually speak?
Well, it's about realizing that silence, it's not empty. It's where we can hear the things we might miss otherwise.
Oh, I see.
Like the subtle cues when someone's talking or our own intuition. Those deeper truths that get kind of drowned out by all the noise.
Yeah.
Schopenhauer, he didn't think wisdom was about just knowing more stuff.
Right.
It was about getting rid of distractions and seeing what's already there inside us.
So it's about quieting that will, that desire to understand better.
Exactly.
But how do we get from there to actual wisdom? Isn't wisdom, learning and discussing ideas?
Well, for him, wisdom wasn't just facts. It was about a deep intuitive understanding of everything, the good and the bad, all of it.
Whoa.
And silence, that was crucial for him to peel back those layers of desire, see the world clear, see ourselves clearly.
So silence as this space for reflection, for self-discovery. But Schopenhauer also said silence is a source of power. That seems, well, contradictory.
Yeah.
How can being silent make you powerful?
It might seem odd, but he thought silence could be a real advantage. Think about it. When you don't always say what you're thinking, there's a kind of mystery. You're not as predictable, and that can actually make you more influential.
So it's about choosing when to speak, when to hold back, using silence strategically.
Exactly. By not just reacting immediately, you give others space to maybe reveal things. And in that space, you can watch, listen, learn. It's a more mindful way to communicate.
Makes sense. But let's be real. Being totally silent in today's world, constantly bombarded with, information, got to be on all the time.
Yeah.
How do we actually do this?
Yeah, it's tough. Schopenhauer knew that. But he had some practical ideas, like making time for meditation, even just a few minutes.
Yeah, okay.
And, choosing your words carefully, speaking only when it really matters.
So not about becoming a hermit, never talking.
Right.
It's about being intentional with our words and with our silence.
Exactly. And learning to truly listen, not just to the words, but to the silences between them.
Yeah.
Those pauses can be just as meaningful.
That's true. And, well, Schopenhauer loved music.
Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't against all communication.
Yeah, not at all.
So how does music fit in with all this silence philosophy?
He thought music could tap into something deeper than language, a kind of pure universal understanding, connecting with something bigger than ourselves. And in a way, silence was similar.
Oh, interesting.
Quieting the mind to reach a deeper understanding.
So silence for wisdom, for power, and even as a way to communicate, beyond words. But wouldn't some people say that silence is, a weakness? Like if you don't speak up, you get overlooked, you don't get ahead. What would Schopenhauer say to that?
He'd probably say those who think silence equals weakness, they're mistaking, real power for just being loud.
Yeah.
Remember, he saw the will as this drive to control everything. So true strength for Schopenhauer, it came from mastering that will, not letting it, control you.
Interesting way to look at it. So not about being the loudest voice, but having the inner strength to choose silence when it actually works better.
Yeah, exactly. He thought that by choosing silence over just blurting things out, you show like self-control, and that earns respect.
That makes sense.
It's about the discipline to watch, to listen, and then speak carefully.
Reminds me of what you said before about silence being like a strategic tool.
Right.
Could you say more about that? How does silence actually give you an advantage when you're talking to people?
Imagine you're, negotiating something.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of filling every pause, what if you let there be silence, let people think? You might be surprised what they say.
Right. They may feel like they got to talk.
Yeah.
And then they say too much.
Exactly. Or think about a meeting. Lots of big personalities, everyone wants to talk.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't jump in, but instead you really listen, you watch how everyone acts, and then you speak, but only when you have something really smart to say, you'll stand out.
So it's not about like talking the most. It's about like, quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Your words have more weight.
Yeah. And it's not about, tricking people.
Yeah.
Or using silence to manipulate them. It's
Wow.
about making conversations more real, more genuine.
You said genuine a few times now. How does silence make things more authentic, both for ourselves and when we talk to others?
Think about that will again. All those wants and worries, fears we have inside, they can mess with how we see things, keep us from connecting with ourselves and with other people. Silence lets us, hit pause on all that.
So you can like see your thoughts and feelings more clearly, not get swept away by them.
That's it. And when things are quiet, you can start to see, why you do things, the patterns in how you think. You can get a better sense of who you really are, what really matters.
It's making me think of like mindfulness, being present, paying attention to what's going on inside without judging it. Is that connected to Schopenhauer at all?
Definitely. He thought self-awareness was the basis of wisdom.
Okay.
Understanding yourself, good and bad, so you can make choices, on purpose. And silence helps you do that.
We talked about music before. But Schopenhauer was also big on meditation, right?
Yeah.
Did he see those two things working together?
He did. He thought both music and meditation could help us get past the limits of language, connect to something, more real. Meditation, it was for calming the mind, getting stronger so you can resist that pull of the will. And music, it gave you a glimpse of like pure beauty, something universal.
So both help you quiet the noise inside and experience something deeper.
Exactly. Meditation might be the classic way to get silence, but Schopenhauer also thought you could find quiet moments in everyday life.
Not just sitting in a cave for hours.
Right.
It's about being open to those silent moments that just happen.
It can be as simple as, taking a few minutes, sitting, focusing on your breath, or a walk in nature, no phone, no headphones, just listening to the world around you. Even cutting back on social media, the news, that can give you more space to think quietly.
All good ideas. And it seems like it's not just about, peace and quiet for ourselves. It's about making the world a little bit better.
Absolutely. When you cultivate silence in your own life, you start to notice what others need more. You get more patient, more understanding. It makes room for real connection, real empathy.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
This whole idea of silence and self-mastery makes me wonder, did Schopenhauer live this way? Was he this, super calm, quiet guy?
That's a good question. He was a complicated guy, kept to himself a lot, had some rough relationships, wasn't afraid to speak his mind, even if it upset people.
So not exactly Mr. Peaceful Zen master.
No, not always. But it was a different time. Back then, intellectual debates, they could get pretty aggressive.
Right.
And even if he didn't always, perfectly live up to this ideal of silent wisdom in his own life, his writing shows he really believed in the power of silence.
So maybe he saw himself as more of a guide.
Yeah.
Showing people a path he was still, trying to follow himself.
Maybe. But no matter his own, personal struggles, what he said about silence, it's still really important today. The world's so crazy, so distracting now more than ever. Schopenhauer reminds us that it's crucial to find stillness, to cultivate peace inside.
Speaking of today's world, we've talked about silence as something personal. But what about silence for society as a whole? What if everyone started to really value silence?
That's a that's a big question. I mean, what would a society that really like embraced silence even look like? Would it be, I don't know, peaceful, harmonious, or
Or something totally different.
what would that even be like? Schopenhauer, I don't know if he'd say it'd be a utopia. Remember, not exactly optimistic about people, right?
Yeah.
But I think he'd agree that if a society really valued silence, it would have to focus on, reflection,
Yeah.
looking inward, real connection with each other, not so much driven by those desires of the will, like we talked about.
So not always chasing stuff, wanting more, but looking for fulfillment, like inside themselves.
Yeah, imagine like leaders who really listened to people, political debates that were, thoughtful, not just yelling, education that wasn't just about facts, but about developing wisdom, that kind of stuff.
That's a pretty compelling picture.
Yeah.
But is that even like possible? I mean, the world's so loud, so distracting.
It's hard, for sure. But maybe it starts small with individuals, people making time for silence in their day, schools teaching kids to be mindful, workplaces with, quiet spaces to think.
So like a ripple effect, starting with little things that then, change the whole culture.
Right. And speaking of what individuals can do, there are definitely things you can try besides just meditation.
Oh yeah, like what?
Could be as simple as like a few minutes every day, just sitting, paying attention to your breath, or going for a walk, no phone, no music, just taking in what's around you, even just cutting back on, social media, all the news. That can give you more space to think.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
It seems like it's not just about, feeling peaceful ourselves. It's about making the world a little kinder, a little more understanding.
Exactly. When you make space for silence in your life, you notice other people more. You have more patience, more empathy.
This has been great. As we wrap up our deep dive into Schopenhauer here, what's the one thing you heard people listening will take away from all this?
I guess if there's one thing, it's that silence. It's not empty. It's full. It's something powerful, and it can make our lives better, our relationships better, even the world better if we let it in.
That's really well said. Silence is not empty, it's full. It's a good reminder that even with all the noise and chaos, there's still wisdom to be found in the quiet. So
Sure.
everyone listening, I encourage you, take some time, step away from all the craziness and see what happens when you experience silence for yourself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring.